Now we're going to talk about the installation of one of these structured media centers into an existing structure. We're going to go into this stud wall here. This house is built with wood studs on a 16-inch center, so it's perfect. There's some equipment needs to be installed down below, so we have to raise the enclosure up slightly. We're going to need to be at least 40 inches off the finished floor. We're going to install a structured media center that is 28 inches tall, so we'll just go up to 70 inches and put a mark. Now we have a general idea. There's a stud here and here. We'll use a stud finder to locate it, but I'm going to start by marking the top of the enclosure at 70 inches. So we know where we're going to install it. And you can use a stud finder to locate the studs. These tools are available at most home hardware stores, and they're good, but you also need to double check, which we're going to show. So we'll start. We believe the center of the bay is here. You can tell by knocking. That's a stud. So we have a general idea that there's a stud here and there's a stud about here. So let's confirm that with the stud finder. Starting in the empty bay. We're set. I'm going to slide across. That's the edge. So we'll put a small mark there. Just something that I can see, but isn't going to be too difficult to remove later. Now we'll move across, locate the other one. There we go. That's the edge of the other one. Terrific. So with the studs located, what I'm going to do, we're going to make sure that it's even with the floor. We're going to get our tape measure out again and mark 70 inches. Right at the tip of the stud here. 70 inches. And we're going to come across over here to the other stud. Making sure we're even on the floor. 70 inches. I'm going to use a straight edge. The enclosure comes with this mud guard. So conveniently enough, it's a straight edge for us. The reason I'm using this as opposed to like a metal straight edge is this won't leave a mark on the wall. So plus I have it and it's free. So strike a line across here. That's going to be the top of our cutout. In order to install this, we're going to have to cut out this drywall. We're going to need to mark the bottom of the enclosure cutout. That's pretty straightforward. There's a number of ways to do this. I find the easiest way is just to put the enclosure on the wall at the top mark and mark your bottom mark. So try not to go too far over the edge. If you strike out here, when your enclosure is done, you're going to leave a mark on the wall. We don't want to leave any marks on the wall, so we're just going to draw inside that line. Let's put this guy on the wall here, between the stud marks, which are right here, and right there. And this is just to mark the bottom of the cutout. Leave yourself approximately 1/16 of an inch or so here, and come down below. Put a mark across there. It's your top and bottom. The vertical cuts, you're going to just use the stud and go down the stud. So that doesn't necessarily need to be marked. We're going to do this with a hand saw. The way to confirm that the studs are actually there is to start here and cut across until you feel you've hit the stud. You need to be careful with this because there could be wires attached to that stud and you don't want to saw through them. But you're going to come across at a slight angle until you feel the stud and stop. And that's how you know that this mark is on the edge of the stud. We'll start here. We've already got a mark. We know the stud is close to that area. Pop the saw through like so. To keep a nice straight cut, if you saw straight in and out, the cut tends to be very wavy. The more you angle the saw over to the edge, the straighter your cut will be. So we'll just cut through this guy. I can feel the stud there. Stop. I'm going to continue the cut across the other side. And again, we're looking for that stud mark here. You can feel it. There it is. Okay, same thing on the bottom. Don't start here and try to cut your way across. You might find that you're off. First find that you're definitely at the edge of the stud bay. You can feel it there. Now we'll cut back across. There we go. So top and bottom cut. All right, we're gonna cut up these two sides, riding on the edge of the stud. If you're unsure of what's in there, it's perfectly fine. You've already committed to this location to cut a little view access hole. So we'll just do that, just so you can get an idea. There. So we can see the edge of the stud. Now you'll notice that I cut this at an angle. And the reason for that is the enclosure, the end of the enclosure has a lip around it that protrudes slightly right here. So when we cut at an angle, we give room for this lip to set flush with the drywall. It'll make more sense when we cut it, but that's why we're cutting this at an angle. We'll do the same thing on both sides. Now that we have our little window here, we can see there are no cables here. This is great. If you want, you can reach in there and see if there's any cables on the other side. There are none. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue with this cut all the way up. And we're just riding along the inside of this stud at this shallow angle. It's not a 45, slightly less than that. It's just enough to create a taper. I'm gonna start cutting from the top down now. There we go. You can see that it's loose now. There we are. We'll test fit the enclosure. Make sure we've got enough height. That's good. Width is right. That's good. It's going to fit right in there nicely. This enclosure has these tabs on the side, and these are to install in new construction where you would attach it directly to the studs. In this case, we need to remove them. To remove these tabs, take a sharp knife, and in that little nook there, you're just going to put a small score line. Okay, once they're scored, I'm just going to palm it. I'm going to push back on it and break it off. And do the same thing on the other side. Need a good sharp knife for this. Now I've already removed the knockouts that I need to run my cables, including the power knockout. So the box is ready to put in. Now, being careful here, you can see there's no drywall on the other side. Be careful not to, of course, drop it into the wall. What we're going to do is we're going to get it in place till it's flush, like so. And we're going to drive screws into the studs to hold it in place. Inside the enclosure, there are pre-marked dimples in the hinge areas on both sides. Those are for attaching the device to the studs inside the wall. The enclosure is ready to put in now. Get at least one of the screws ready, which I have. I'm just using an ordinary drywall screw. Set it into place. You can hang on to it. It's the nice thing about getting the knockouts out first. It gives you something to hang on to. Put it roughly flush. You'd rather have it slightly in than out. We'll use our drywall screw. Drive it in there so that it flushes in. Now I'll get a few more screws and we'll fasten this box into the wall. It is not required that you use every dimple hole. You can just use 4. That would be fine. Now that we've got the box retrofitted into the opening, let's go ahead and install the hinge door.